What's up, guys? Today we're going over how to make your own concrete countertop. That look absolutely amazing. I love concrete countertops because you can do so many creative things with picking the colors and the design and just having something that's really custom to your home. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we did here obviously is take off the old countertop and make sure we have a good solid base, because this concrete countertop is gonna weigh like a couple hundred times more than this flimsy junky countertop we had there now. You wanna make sure you disconnect the sink so you don't get water spraying everywhere. Actually, when I did disconnect it, I found a bunch of mold and stuff that we had to take care of. So it's probably a good thing that we opened it up. So then we cut the plywood and put it into place. This is gonna be the base to our concrete countertop. It was important that this is very level, so we had to make some braces because some of the cabinets were a little bit different sizes, so we had to make sure they were all level. Then we screwed in a 2x6 from the bottom, that way we would be able to take it off afterwards. And we also put in some braces on the bottom because there's gonna be a ton of weight on this, so we want to make sure that nothing cracks, nothing leaks while we're doing this. Then we went ahead and we caulked all the corners with this stuff here. You want to make sure that everything is as watertight as you can get it, so that the concrete's not all leaking down your cabinets. That'll be very bad. It's very wet when it goes down. So you want to make sure that you avoid that. So we left about an inch of space between the wall of our concrete countertop and the plywood, because we don't want the plywood to show through when we go ahead and we cut the concrete later. We want there to be about an inch of overlap. So for the side of what's going to be your concrete countertop, we use this board. For the life of me, I don't know what it's called, but it's like smooth. So it's not going to stick to your concrete as much, so that when you go to peel it off, it doesn't peel concrete off with it. And then we also took like some olive oil and we rubbed it along the board so it doesn't stick a little bit more. And we had the caulking for the corners, so again, it's not sticking into the corners when we peel it off. So pretty much go to Lowe's or Home Depot and look for something that looks like this. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. This is the type of concrete that we used right here. It's just a concrete mix. Very rapid set because we were doing it late at night and we didn't want to be there all night, because sometimes it can take a few hours to set up. And when we were doing it this way, it was like ready to go pretty much immediately. I would recommend going online, finding a concrete calculator, and then running your measurements on how thick you want it to be. We went with like 3 or 4 inches, and then add a couple extra bags on top of it. Obviously we went way overboard, but you don't want to be a bag short. That would be much worse. You can always return stuff and it's just a couple bucks a bag. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Now, you definitely don't have to use that type of concrete. That's just what we used on this one. Actually, in the last one that I did, we went with a totally different look. It was much more industrial, and we used something with larger stones so that when we cut it, we had much larger stones and it looked really cool. We didn't color that one at all, so it was just a totally different look than this one. You can also do it with just cement. Again, that's gonna be a totally different look than this would be. It's gonna be much sleeker and smoother. It's just gonna be a very different feel. So then we took a wheelbarrow and we started mixing all this together, pretty much just pouring in a bag and then pouring in some water. You want this to be a little bit stiff. You don't want it to be too wet, because if you have it sealed at the bottom like you should, all the water will not be able to escape into the ground like normal concrete, and therefore it'll end up rising to the top, and you don't want it to be too wet. You also don't want it to take forever to set up, so pour a little bit stiff. You also want to make sure that you have 2 people if you're using rapid set concrete, because you want to have one person mixing it together and laying it down, and then the other person, you know, leveling it out and all of that and working it, because if you just have one person, it could end up getting too hard for you to work behind you, because this sets up so incredibly fast. So you want to get it as level as you can with the float and keep going over the top until all the rocks are gone. So as you're going over with the float, you just keep going over it, and all the cream will rise to the top and it'll push all the rocks down. Then we went over it with this 3 or 4 foot piece of 2x4, and that's just to make sure that you're level over that space, and then you kind of carried that down so that everything is as level as we can get it. And also, as he's tapping with that 2x4, that's also kicking the rocks down a little bit more. So for this one, we decided that we wanted to color it. We decided to go with a green and then also like this tannish brown type color so that there's a little bit more depth into it. The last one that we did, we didn't color at all and it was all one color, which was really good. It worked really well in the home that we were in, but for this one, we wanted a little bit color. And that's the awesome thing about these concrete countertops is you can do any type of custom colors. You can do swirls and you can do whatever you want to do. It can look as natural as you want or as unnatural as you want. So we laid it out in this pattern so that it'll kind of swirl together. You'll have highlights of one, highlights of the other, and then you'll have some of the natural concrete look as well. So then we just kept going over this and over this and over this, and that kind of mixes the colors together so you don't really see the swirls. They're just kind of highlights of different things throughout and really mixes it together. And you pretty much just go over a couple times until it's almost starting to get hard. If it's getting too dry on you and you need to, it's okay to sprinkle a little bit of water on there because you don't want it to dry with just those swirls on it. You want to make sure you're able to work those in until they pretty much disappear. So when you have the board on the face of this here, you want to make sure that you're tapping all along the side with a hammer because you want to make sure that it settles as much as possible, especially when you have the big stones like this. If it doesn't settle, you're gonna have little holes where there's like air gaps or whatever in the side of this, and it'll also flake off. You can see like up here, it kind of flaked off the bottom. We didn't tap that enough, but the rest of it's pretty much fine. But you'll have these huge holes if you don't do that. You'll be able to hide some of it when you shave this off at the end to get this cool exposed look. You want to make sure that you're tapping this all the way around a little bit more than you think you need to. So we let that sit for about a day. Now, in all honesty, this set up really fast and we probably could have just stripped it right afterwards, but we wanted to let it sit for a while. Well, this shot would have been really cool if it was in focus. Anyway, so this is why we wanted to make sure that all the screws were on the outside so that we can unscrew everything here and just take it all off. It should strip right off. You shouldn't have any problems. If you tapped on it with the hammer, then you shouldn't have any like chunks falling out or anything like that. So we did make a bit of a mistake here. I hadn't bought the sink yet when we had done this, so we didn't know what size to cut out, but we definitely should have gone ahead and framed that out ahead of time. That way you don't have to try to cut through the concrete and the plywood. It just took a really long time. We had to cut it out with an angle grinder and then do like drill bits to cut out the corner. So that was a bit of a pain, and it weighs like an insane amount. So I would definitely recommend know the size of your sink ahead of time and then frame it out. That way you can just drop the sink right in and you don't have to worry about trying to cut through the concrete. We took an angle grinder and cut off about a 1/4 inch on all the outside to get this really nice exposed look. Now, if you're doing this in a home that's already finished, you will make more dust than you can believe. So glasses and a mask are a must. I would recommend taking plastic and throwing that around the whole room so the dust doesn't get everywhere else. And then also you want to put a shop vac or a vacuum right behind the blade so that all the dust as it's kicking out can get vacuumed up so it's not quite as bad. But this will be really dusty. That is one of the downsides of using the stone look. While you will get this really cool exposed look, you are going to have to cut it. So if you're doing a pour in place like we're doing, you're going to have to cut it inside a home, which is just, there's no way around it. It's going to make a really big mess. So then we went ahead and we sanded this with an 80 grit and then I think 160 and then 220, just sanding it a bunch of times till everything's smooth. Anything that's gonna flake off is flaking off, and just keep going over and over and over again. Sanding the sides, sanding the corners here so they're not sharp. So since we use some color, you want to make sure that you go ahead and wash this multiple times to try to get all of that loose color up. No matter how many times you do it, you're not going to get it all up, but you want to get as much of the loose stuff up as you can. So I washed this about 5 times until my water was clear once I was wringing out my rag. You just got to keep doing it over and over again. So then we got this 2-part food grade sealer, and you just roll this on. You actually roll on like 3 coats. It was kind of a pain. I'm gonna look for a different kind next time we do this, but I didn't really love it. But you just pretty much had to keep putting on some coats. It's very simple to do. You just had to mix it together and, you know, roll it on. It's pretty easy to do. If you do this yourself, take a picture and send it to me. I would love to see it. There's so many different ways to express yourself in a concrete countertop that I think it's really a artsy, creative thing to do, and I think it's a blast. Just do it yourself on a weekend. What's the worst that could happen? You could break all your cabinets and ruin your kitchen. Okay, maybe you should watch this twice before you do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if you did. Feel free to subscribe. I talk about minimalism, financial content, and just overall trying to make sure that every video I put out improves your life in some way, either entertaining you or teaching you something useful, like how to build your own concrete countertop. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you